Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Strategies to Handle Flaky Automated Tests. Let's check the internet connection first. I hope everyone can see and hear us. Please type a plus in the chat box in your control panel if everything is okay. Let's wait for a while till everyone is here. Okay, let's start. It seems the connection is fine. I would like to start by thanking everyone for joining. We will no doubt dive into some great content today. Now, without further ado, let's introduce ourselves. I'm Vyacheslav Rudenko, QA Automation Engineer at QATestLab. For those of you who don't know QATestLab, we've been providing independent software testing services globally for 15 years. Our portfolio includes more than 250 mobile, desktop, web, cloud, and API test automation projects. We're always ready to provide you with tailor-made automation solutions to suit your unique project requirements. Visit QATestLab.com to learn more about our services. Now I'd like to introduce my co-panelists, Robin and Konstantin, who will share their experience on how to optimize the test automation process. Welcome, guys.
Hey, Vyacheslav. Hello, everyone. So my name is Konstantin. I'm QA lead in Miro. For those who hear Miro word for the first time, Miro is the online collaborative whiteboard platform to bring teams together anytime, anywhere. So we have more than 20 million registration in our service, and such big companies as Cisco, Deloitte, Hewlett-Packard trust us and use our services. Glad to see you guys here.
Hi guys, this is Robin, and I'm gonna say that in the picture that I still have long hair before, but now I just cut my hair, so maybe you can not really recognize me. But anyway, I'm also just joined Miro like 7 months ago. I'm an engineering manager for Q Automation, and very glad to see you guys here. Then I put it back to Vyacheslav.
Thank you, guys. You look great.
Sorry for interruption, but Robin, it looks like we have opposite images. You with long hair and I'm
Yes, no, yeah, definitely.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Please go ahead.
That's a very nice remark. I'm really glad to share this experience with you today. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. We've got 40 minutes for the discussion and 20 minutes for your questions. Please do ask the questions. We'd love to answer them at the end of the talk. You can send questions in the question tab. From now, we can now move forward. Our topic for the webinar today is how to mitigate the risk of flaky automation tests. We're going to talk about the nature and origins of flaky tests, about the challenges they bring. We're going to give you some insights on how to find ways to mitigate flaky tests. We're also going to share some hints on how to create a culture of quality at the organization that helps you mitigate test automation issues, including flaky tests, and much more. So back to our first topic. Flaky test is a test that doesn't provide the same result, pass or fail, across multiple runs. There are many reasons why flaky tests appear, and so there are many ways to prevent them. Some examples are insufficient coding or testing skills. This includes test order dependency, test preconditions, tests that are too large, relying on screen coordinates, and so on. Race conditions in the app that is being tested, network failures, server maintenance or updates, or when someone else has access to the system and may affect testing data, and so on. Let's say a test may fail once per 100 runs because a value did not update in time. The chance is pretty low. That's not a big deal, right? Now imagine you're a prestigious restaurant employee and just serve some burnt steak to your client. Shall we say he's not entirely pleased? But you definitely assure him that you'll serve him burnt or rotten food approximately only once per 100 visits. If that doesn't work, you invite him to the kitchen to show him how clean and modern it is. But he suddenly notices a cockroach that runs to another room. You offer the client to exit the kitchen and re-enter it. See, this time there is no cockroach. But the client may object that the cockroach is still there. Well, in that case, you say, we'll isolate that room and never open it again. Do you really think that you just solved all the problems and the client forgets about the steaks he just consumed? Or do you really think you can handle everything, the whole process alone? Of course not. We need to go to the butcher, to the developer, and ask him to provide better raw steaks. We need to go to the exterminator, to another developer, and ask him to eliminate bugs, even if they're minor usability problems. Instead of creating a whole science of how to work with an unstable oven to prevent food from being burned, we can call an electrician or repair service to fix the wiring or the oven and free our precious time for something more useful. It's better to keep things simple. Inviting the client to re-enter the kitchen is like rerunning the failed test that actually detects a bug. Isolating the room with the bug is like having a quarantine for tests that don't need it. All these workarounds with serving the food multiple times or isolating a part of the building don't look convincing, and more importantly, they don't solve the actual problem. Instead, you're either wasting time and power investigating them, or lose your vigilance and may let actual issues through, thinking they're caused by test flakiness. Sometimes it's important to remember that our job is not to have green runs, but to catch bugs that are red. Google, whose employees are among the most talented, at some point reported they had about 16 or more of their tests being flaky to some degree. If we have 1,000 tests in a test suite, that makes it about 160 flaky tests. The chance to have a clean test run is 20%. 4 out of 5 runs will fail. They also reported that 84% of transitions from pass to fail were from flaky tests, and you can see here how the 1% of test flakiness for a single test transforms to kind of awful build history. Konstantin, back to you.
Thank you, Vyacheslav. Thank you for such an interesting analogy with restaurants and cockroaches. Like, nobody likes cockroaches, for sure. I just want to add that the existence of lucky tests has a negative impact on the business side of the product also. Let's imagine a big, fast-growing company, for example, Miro, where we have multiple releases per day. In Miro, we have a rule that we are not allowed to pass build on production if 100% tests on build weren't green. So it means that if some build will have at least one failed test, the build won't go to the production. And in such a world, it becomes quite expensive to have lucky tests, because it means that the company is not able to provide latest working functionality to their lovely customers in time. So as a result, time to market significantly increased. And despite the fact that we are the #1 solution in area of whiteboard, we have strong competitors, and the impossibility of delivering functionality quickly due to flaky tests is unacceptable in our cases. Yeah. So yeah, that's it from my side.
That's a great addition, thanks. Well, let's go to our next topic, the most effective ways to handle flaky tests with actual examples. I think the developer is your friend here. Developers can add unique accessibility IDs, hide UI updates behind progress bars, add invisible flags, provide you with API, add trivial things like alert titles to make testing code cleaner, and advise about the app functionality. Let's look at some real examples. Example 1, progress bar and UI updates. It's about switching views in an application. In the app on the left, we need to test switching from one view to another. Steps would be: first, make sure the current view contains an and. Second, swipe left. Third, wait for the next view to appear. Fourth, assert the next view contains a cockroach. Here we go. As you can see, there's also a progress bar trying to hide the switching process. A bit poorly though. If you don't wait for the next view to appear, we can get element not found error in case the progress bar kicks in right before the testing framework can detect this view. If we wait for the next view and then make some assertions, these assertions can start again right at the moment this progress bar appears, resulting in element not in DOM anymore error. What can be done if we decide to fix this issue alone is to wait for the progress bar for 10 seconds or so, and then wait for the cockroach view, regardless if the progress bar appeared or not. It will work, but the test might not catch the progress bar in case it's displayed for a short period of time. resulting in extra waiting time, which is bad. Much better would be to ask the developer to start showing the progress bar before the cockroach view can be detected. On the example on the right, the steps are: first, make sure the current view contains a cockroach. Second, navigate to another view. And third, assert that this view contains an ant. Since the view is not updated immediately, the test can detect the view with the cockroach and think is the expected view in case they have the same locators, of course. We can check with the developer if the view can be replaced faster, or if the view locators can be updated right after the navigation to another view is triggered, or if the progress bar can be added similar to the example on the left, which is playing now. The choice is yours. Example 2, accessibility IDs, XPath, and other locators. Let's imagine that we have a friend called Steve, and he lives on the street number 1, in the building number 3, in the apartment number 3. So he can be found by locator street 1, building 3, apartment 3. What if he and another person switch their apartments? As you can see, such locators are not reliable. We need a locator like Steve's apartment. Back to our phones. Let's say we have an app that holds info about many users. User 1 has 3 emails, while user 2 has 2. Often there are no unique locators for such kind of things, so we can detect if the user data by either index values, by XPath, or by text value. Locating by text value can lead to missed bugs or complex code, in case the value is displayed on the screen but is applied to a wrong field. If we are locating user data by index, the address value index is 10 for user 1 and 8 for user 2. Just as our friend Steve can change his address. More so, the phone value field can be represented by static text on one iOS version and by button on another, which adds even more complexity to the code and may shift our indexes. Better, let's ask our developers to add unique IDs instead. Next example is about night mode and a bit of attention. In a view that allows selecting some items, there are 2 arrows, left and right. Adding them to the test, we see that the left arrow has left arrow label and the right one has, unsurprisingly, right arrow label. Being a smart tester and remembering that the app also has night mode, we turn it on and check if the left arrow selector exists, and it has left arrow white label. So instead of, as you can see, with the blue text. So instead of matching labels completely, we can use contains technique. If we hadn't done this, the test would have been flaky and pass or fail depending on the daytime. Being a quick tester, we apply the same rule to the right arrow and still get a flaky test. Because the right arrow locator in night mode is right white arrow and not right arrow white for some reason, and doesn't contain right arrow text, just right and arrow separately. That's a real life example, by the way. While a valid locator can still be composed out of 2 parts, it's better to have them uniform. Example 3, dates and time zones. Let's say we test an app that tracks the distance you walked or cycled daily. When the app is opened for the first time during the day, it shows a pop-up with yesterday's distance traveled and today's goal. One of the options to deal with it would be to check for the pop-up at the beginning of each test suite. What if the check fails, though? Because of the connection issue on the developer server, for example? Most of the tests will also fail, and you'll have to run the whole thing. Another option is to check for this pop-up every time the test is unable to locate an element, but this option has its own drawbacks. It's also a common thing to have a server or a test user on the opposite side of the earth, so it's easy to forget it's midnight for him while you're having a lunch. As for development side solution, we can get this pop-up disabled for one of the test users and never worry about it. Example 4, logs. If the fail is hard to catch, like a random app crash, just provide all the info you can get to the developer and ask him to add some debug logs. After the fail happens again, share these logs with the developer. Video or screenshots sometimes don't help. Example 5, app timeouts. Sometimes server can be slow, especially development servers. If the app requires login, the test might wait for 10 or 15 seconds and then fail. Developer knows how long the app will wait before failing. Ask him what's the maximum timeout for certain things, like login, and set the timeouts and test accordingly. Example 6, memory leaks. When the tests are running for too long, they may fail because of memory leak. Instead of restarting the app or the testing device, try to fix the leaks first. Let's get back to Konstantin.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Vyacheslav. Great examples. I'm pretty sure that someone from the audience will find something useful for their test projects. Vyacheslav showed us how you can try to prevent the creation of Flaky test. And these are really great examples. Again, thank you very much. But what if we still have such tests after all those enhancements in developer's code? In addition to Vyacheslav's examples, I want to add some sort of post-action thing. We all know that it is quite impossible to get rid of Flaky tests at all. There are too many places where something can go wrong. All of us work with complicated systems, and the reason for Flaky tests might be related not only with code indicators, time zones, and locales, but also with the environment where we run our tests. Let's imagine a pretty common case. We have three types of environments: product environment, auto test environment, so the environment where we run our tests, and developer's local environment, the magic environment where everything works perfectly without any issues and of course without any failed tests. So, and quite often it might be a case when tests are failed only on auto test environment but works on developer's local environment. So where is the truth then? There is no single truth actually. We are constantly trying to keep our environments up to date, but the product grows really fast and the infrastructure grows pretty fast. And not all part of the project might be updated on developer side, but it is not always protecting us from failed builds with Flaky tests. But what is really protecting us is failed test reruns. So yes, we have from 3 to 9, actually on the slide I see up to 8, but yeah, we have from 3 to 9 auto reruns on failed tests. And of course, this is not about how to prevent Flaky tests, but mostly how to decrease their affection to time to market. As practice shows, after third or fourth run, failed test at least one time will be green. This is quite straightforward solution, but as practice shows, it works and protects us in the short term. So, but this is only about the technical side of the solution. We also have another side related to creating a culture of quality, the organization that helps you mitigate test automation issues, including test flakiness. And here I will pass the mic to Robin, our QA automation engineer manager.
Thanks a lot, guys. That's really great. So as all of you guys know that, just as Vyacheslav and Kostya mentioned that we cannot really avoid the Flaky test. I think what we are doing currently, first is like make a testing environment to be more stable. Second thing is like to write a great test cases, maybe based on some standards or guidelines. And finally, you may think, oh, I run 2,000 test cases, maybe 1 or 2 are Flaky, or based on the network issues, based on the performance issues, based on other issues. You're going to say, hey, okay, this is Flaky. I'm going to explain that to the business to say, hey, this is Flaky. However, in Miro, it's different because as Kostya mentioned just now, we have a lot of builds every day. We have a lot of release every day. We cannot do that processes manually. So that's the reason why we want to discuss a little bit about how we can creating this culture to avoid this Flaky test. So first, I think maybe you guys already know something like some question like people gonna say that, oh, I don't have time to write test cases. or this test case is flaky is because of the network issues or because of any other issues. And also something, at least something like, oh, maybe when there is an urgent release, people are gonna say, hey, I don't have time to test that. Let's just release like this. So this is kind of situations that maybe all of us have this kind of situation during the Q automation. So how we can, maybe from our perspective or just my personal perspective, how we can avoid this situation. So Vyacheslav, could you please go to next page, please? Yes. So this is how it looks like. Maybe for most of companies, first, developers gonna create some new features or update some existed features, and then we're gonna go to the CI/CD pipelines to deploy that, and then deploy to some testing environment. Then we're gonna start run some automation test. Beside that, maybe we have also some manual test. In these cases, it's gonna have some options now or results. First, we find the bug by automation test or by manual test. Then we send it back to the developers. Developers gonna have a look and maybe also gonna fix that. Second thing is like all of them works, but one of the test cases is outdated. For example, the new features has been updated, but the test cases haven't been updated. So then the automation test engineers need to really update the test cases to ensure this test case can be passed. However, this process really looks like a ping pong game, right? You send message back to developer, developer send message back to the QA engineer, and maybe sometimes it even take 2 or 3 days just to make this process works. This is something we really want to avoid in Miro, because we have a really fast growth and a very a huge amount of the builds every day. We cannot really do these things. Okay, let's see the next slide maybe. Yes, please. I also read some post in the Medium. Also, is kind of what we want to really achieve. It's called shift left. So what is shift left? It's very obvious. We move the test from the left to the left side compared with the first picture. So develop and the test will be in the same time. It's also maybe matching something like when we talk about TDD, or when we talk about something like how we call that, early stage testing or something like that. So however, we really want to achieve that. But people are going to ask how and what will be the result. But first, let's say what will be the differences after we change to this mode. Let's go to the next slide, please. Yeah. So the big differences here, you can see it's very obvious, right? We put the most of the quality effort at the beginning at the develop and build processes instead of release processes. Maybe people are going to ask me something like, hey, Robin, we have a lot of hot discussions during the release. We just find a bug just 1 minute before the release. Something happened, right? Maybe in your situation also. So in this picture, you can see we put more and more effort in the left side, in the develop and build side. So it means maybe even from the planning, from design, from developer processes, we already start writing the automation tests. It's also a little bit different with the TDD. Maybe for the TDD, we even write the test case before the development. But for this one, I don't really care about how we call that. But anyway, we're gonna still write test cases and the developer features in the same time. To achieve that, let's say how we can do that. Next slide, please. I always think the developers are the key. Because for this whole process, you're gonna say that you remember that just Vyacheslav mentioned that you're gonna ask the developers to update the ID. You're gonna ask maybe developers to do something. Okay, why not why developers cannot directly do that by themselves? Not only the locators, but also the test cases itself. So if we really think the developers are the key, we need to ask several questions. Also, maybe also in your situations for all the participants currently. First, do you think your candidate can really implement automation tests now or not? Second, do you think your developers can understand what happened with existing tests? Let's say what has been tested, what haven't been tested. The third thing is like, can your developers fix and maintain test cases by themselves? For example, if feature has been changed or something like that. Okay, if all of yes, or maybe if one or two or three these items are not clear in the current situation, let's say from my perspective or our perspective, how are we going to achieve that? Next slide, please. Yeah. So we're always saying first, if I really want to involve some people in these processes, we need to talk the same languages, right? Currently, we all speak English. No matter we can speak Russian or speak other languages, now we all speak English. So it's the same for coding. It's same for writing the test cases. If we write test cases in Java, for example, but all the customers, I mean the developers who need to write test cases just use TypeScript or JavaScript. So we already have a problem here, a blocker here. So that's the reason why we see. First is like we need to talk in a same language. It can be a Java, everyone speaks Java, or it can be TypeScript or JavaScript. Second, and also we need to put the test just near to the code. You will always find that the developers cannot always go through around the world, right? You just put your test cases beside of the developer's code. Second is boundaries. Once we have this, let's say, these test cases that are written in developers' language, then we have to understand boundaries. Which part is managed by QA? Which part is managed by dev? The third one is human readable test report. It's a very obvious, right? You send the report. If no one can understand, it doesn't make sense. The first one is the history and the statistics. We understand how it looks like before, and is it flaky? Is it flag test or not? The last one is ownership. We really need to share the ownership between developers and QA, and finally we can build up and set up this culture between the developers and QAs. Okay, I think that's it for me. I'll leave it back to Vyacheslav.
Thanks. Really great examples. I completely agree with you. To add something from myself is that indeed there's sometimes a mindset that the developer should only test. The developer should only add features, and the tester should do all the testing. This approach, like this approach, has its own side effects, like moving all the quality responsibility from the developer to the tester. There's also a tendency to blend the roles, like to do in Microsoft or Facebook, where the developers can add their own and each other's code, which is great, I think. If the developer is expected to add features only, helping the testers put such certain burden on him. He needs to either reject your request or hurry up with the feature or work extra time. Each of these choices can cause some pressure. But if the developer is actually expected to help, he shouldn't feel any dissonance when you're distracting him from adding new features and asking to help with the testing. As a bonus, you can get a bunch of usability issues fixed, cleaner testing code, free of unnecessary workarounds, and higher team spirit. At the same time, we need to remember that there still might be false alarms where the developers can't really help, like having all providers suddenly go offline. Investigating flaky tests is worth it to a certain point where the efforts outweigh the positive outcome. We need to find the perfect balance for each project and each situation. Some may disagree, but personally, I still believe there are simple ways to prevent flakiness that we might be not aware of yet or don't use due to some reason. And rather than accepting flaky tests on a global scale, I personally would better try to avoid them entirely. I hope it will be possible someday. And that brings us to the end. I will pause here to see if we have any questions. Do we have any? Feel free to post them in the chat. So I can see we received some questions. The rerun approach has a major drawback, which is scalability. How to overcome this issue?
Great question, actually. So as I mentioned about this approach related with reruns, it's kind of the short-term solution. We are still working on the better solution, the better way, how we're going to proceed with that. And Yeah, but if you know actually the solution, how to resolve this issue, please go to us and tell us about it. But now the only way that we found it's reruns, and if we're talking about the scalability, like I think we can live with that sometime for some amount of tests, for some amount of requests from the developers. But yeah, in the future we need to think about it more. But maybe Robin can add something for that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a really great question that also I saw some developers also read that. The first thing is like we need to think about what should be rerun. So in our case, we just rerun the failed test cases. I think it's the same as separate state, right? The second thing is like when we should do rerun. In our cases, we just the purpose, as just Kostya mentioned, we did rerun is to avoid the impaction of flakiness to the time to market. So we have really important standards for about the time to market. So it means we just start the smart rerun for master release build. So if in Miro, we run nearly all of the test cases for each build, to be honest. I mean, for the dev build. However, we just start a rerun in the release build. It means in the release build, we can avoid all the flakiness at that moment. So we give a really the correct test report to the customers, to the business. Yeah, but however, as Costa said, definitely it's not really a best solution. I'm also willing to say, because I see a lot of participants here, I'm sure you have better ideas. Yeah.
Question 2. How do you think, why do you think it's not possible to eliminate flaky tests completely? From my side, I can say that some conditions, we can't really influence them, like internet connection, for example. So even some big websites can be down, or like a man in the middle problem where some new team member can do something in their own way. I really hope they can be eliminated, but currently we still have to watch out for them. Maybe Robin and Konstantin want to add something?
I completely agree with you, Vyacheslav, in this question. So yeah, it's too many factors, actually, too many cases when something can go wrong. And just to get rid of Flaky test completely, I don't see this solution yet.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a dream. Yeah, it's also my dream. But I always think one thing: how many effort we should put on fix the flaky test, and how many effort we should put on the quality assurance. Because from my perspective, I think automation test is a way to ensure the quality the quality of the product. So the main effort we need to, the most of important effort, that is like our test cases can catch bugs. So sometimes one of the flakiness maybe have a lot of let's say bus factors, something like a network, something rest of things. Also, when we talk about the big organizations, you have a lot of contributors for this project. You cannot really to say, oh, to take a lot of time to analyze each of them step one by one. So sometimes from my side, I'm thinking, okay, of course we need to eliminate the flakiness, but in another perspective, we need to think about why we need to write test cases, and how these test cases can create more values for the business.
Yeah, and so just to, in addition to your answer, Robin, so about the Flaky test, you instead of trying to completely get rid of Flaky test, we need to accept them and learn how to work with them. So this is more effective way, just trying to get rid of all Flaky tests, because you will spend lots of time to update your infrastructure, update your code. But from the other hand, if you know how to deal with it, how fast you can react on them, and how fast you can elaborate them, it might be more effective for your company.
Thank you. Next question. What are some best practices for writing flake-resistant tests? From the top of my head is just think first, write second, explore the system, and rerun them a couple of times. Sorry, Konstantin?
Yeah, please go ahead. I think you provided 6 examples of how to work with that, how to save yourself from the Flaky test. So.
Yeah, we should know that some parts of your app or web applications well, you have to know those parts that are unstable and pay special attention to them, like maps or time things, floating point operations, progress bars, some long loading content or lazy loading, and you might want to provide some sort of backup in case the test fails. Sometimes it can be rerun, but please don't overuse it because it can make the test run much longer. Sometimes it can be like in case the test fails, you try to guess why it could fail. For example, some third-party app crashed and you have a banner in the center of the screen that some app like Maps app, for example, on Android emulators has crashed. So in case you can't find an element, you can try to look for this banner, close it, and retry looking for this element. In case yeah, Robin?
Go ahead, sorry. Go ahead, sorry.
I wanted to read the next question and say that in case I'll remember something else, I added, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'm thinking that it's a good question because for all the Q automation engineers, all of us want to write a test case, non-Flaky test, right? But why is sometimes it's impossible? Is first we need to ask is it product is Flaky or not? Right? If the product itself is already Flaky, for example, you open the page that sometimes this page even loaded more than 30 seconds. Let's say we just set a timeout for 5 seconds. Sometimes it's a 30 seconds, sometimes it's 5 seconds. Maybe it's already raised an issue, right, for this product, and then make the test case failed. People may think, oh, it's a flag test. Second thing is like from a test cases perspective, if we really want to avoid the flag test, to write flag test from beginning, my personal suggestion is to extract the actions. So let's imagine we have a separates, we have a playwright, we have a WebDriver, we have Selenium. Once we have this test framework, let's say I just talk about end-to-end UI test here. Once you have this framework, maybe you cannot directly use them, right? Because, for example, you get elements, you cannot directly use that. You have to get element to use a wait until function. Let's say wait until this element to be visible, wait until this thing to be clickable, something like that. Maybe this is a kind of a basic way at the beginning to avoid the flakiness, but it's maybe just my personal idea here. Yeah. Thank you, QATestLab. Maybe we can go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. I just remembered one more best practice from me. When someone wants your attention, like your family member or colleague, and you're busy fixing those flaky tests, don't tell them you're busy. Just to go ahead and to talk to them and to do what they want. But you can also talk to them about the flakiness you have. Even if they're not tech persons, even if they don't know anything about computers, they still can come up with some great ideas. And I had a couple of times in my career where people that don't know about the phones or anything gave me some great idea that helped me to solve the problem. Okay, next question. How do you feel about retries? I don't like them.
Yeah, I would say we already discussed these things, so we feel bad anyway, but this is the way how we protect ourselves, right? So this is the way how we can guarantee the speed to our customers. If failed test after this 2 or 3 retry, it will be green. So the problem in the test, definitely. So, and we can live with it.
Yeah, and like my colleagues already said, there might be some flaky tests that actually have a bug. For example, when you have a list of some items and some item is not loaded, it's borrowed somewhere at the bottom of the list, and the testing framework can see it. But the next time you run it, it does see it, but the next time it doesn't. It's actually a bug because it has to see it from the beginning and it's not being uploaded for some reason. Next question, can you elaborate?
Sorry. I just want to add one more thing there.
Okay.
For the retry, because I think no one likes retry. But why? But I'm always asking myself why we need to do the retry in the test. Let's say I think maybe some guys, you know, that for the separates, why separates have maybe have a lot of customers recently is really because separates embedded this retry for each action. You click it, you also have a retry. If it doesn't work, you get the element, it doesn't retry. So maybe it's another topic, but it's a very interesting topic. If we retry the test cases we don't like, why we like the retry in the action? Should we disable the retry everywhere or something like that? It's a really great topic that maybe at the end that I hope that you guys can directly reach to us that to talk this one. I really like this topic. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, Rich. Go ahead.
So next question, can you elaborate about techniques of smart waits? I'm using some, for example, well, the most obvious one is to wait until the element is displayed on the screen and after that do some action. But sometimes it can be displayed. I mean, you can see it, but it has the flag not visible. In that case, you need to look for some other attributes. Sometimes you need to wait for the element not being displayed. This is a little more tricky. You have to maybe use try catch blocks and stuff. Konstantin, Robin, can you add something?
Yeah, actually, talking about the test framework in Miro, we mostly face with flakiness related with our test environments and something configuration things. As I remember, we have really pretty small percent of flaky tests because of some waiters or maybe some sleeps or something like that. I don't know like why, maybe that's the specific of our test frameworks. So, but yeah, actually we use the same things in our code base, waiting for elements, waiting for visibility of elements and so on. So nothing new there, like common functions from the Selenium.
One thing I remembered is that sometimes you might want to get some other element that even doesn't belong to your current test and use it as a helper. It might also be an invisible element that you may ask the developer to add. Because sometimes, for example, you have a mobile application and you have the navigation bar on top, and the title of the navigation bar may have the same locator on both screens. In that case, it's sometimes not reliable. You might want to check the screen. You might want to wait until, for example, the drawer disappears or until some other element on the screen appears that is unique to that second screen. Okay, to our next question.
Can I also add something? So we don't have lots of issues related with waiting of elements, but if you use our product, if you use Miro, you see that the big part of the product is canvas. So this is image, and when you create tests for that, you don't use any DOM elements because canvas don't have any DOM elements, right? And we're using screenshot comparing. So we have a lot of screenshot tests. And sometimes we have some sort of flakiness because of screenshots. And this is kind of the common problem, like when the first screenshot different from the second screenshot, like due to minor changes not related with user experience. So yeah, this type of flakiness exists in our frameworks, and we're working on it also. But yeah, it's not about waivers.
Also, let's say in Miro, that we also sometimes we cannot really read onto the elements, as Costa mentioned, that we can also read onto the network requests. For example, you read onto even the WebSocket request has been sent out, and then that is also another way that, because sometimes you really find that there is no any element can read. So that's also another solution.
Yep. We have 3 questions left. How do you feel about fail for text functions as a smart wait?
You mean wait for text?
It's a fail for. I think it's a typo. I think it's wait for text.
So this is the option. I would say so.
You mean just wait for text, right?
Yeah, just wait for text.
My personal don't suggest go this way. You cannot imagine, for example, you cannot imagine your company gonna go bigger and bigger, right? One day you say, oh, you are gonna have customers in other countries. For example, you're gonna have customers in France. Then maybe you need the translations. Then your test cases are gonna be redo all the time. That will be super risk, to be honest. But if you say, hey, it's only just a small project, maybe if it's a convenient way, then let's do it. But if you can imagine that it's a super big, faster growth company, that I suggest that don't go this way. Otherwise, we're gonna have problems in the future.
Yeah, that's. I just remembered also a great example that, for example, I had the same text in the drawer, and on the screen I wanted to test. So when I wanted to make sure the screen is actually loaded, one of the options I thought about was to check for text, because it didn't have unique locators at the moment, and I had to wait for the developer to add them. But when I looked at the same text is displayed in the drawer on the screen, and in the part of the app that was not even visible at that point, but it was still detected by the testing framework. That was very risky, and I didn't go for it. So you got to be extra careful, and great example about localization. That's so true. And also text may change. So yeah, it's better to have locators. Yep.
Yeah, you probably you already mentioned, but also yes, we can have lots of the same text on the one page, and it's not the best solution trying to wait something for text.
Yeah, that's right. How do you track flakiness? Number of tests, % of failed? Do you have charts, stats, etc.?
Great question. Really great question. This is what we are working on at the moment. So we don't have any particular system how to track them. We use Allure Enterprise Edition for the reports, and sometimes Allure just marks some tests as flaky using their own mechanism. But this is not the way we are going to implement, actually. So yeah, at the moment, manually, we're just doing manually, trying to get all flaky tests and go to the teams with these tests and ask them to fix them. So yeah, but we're working on it. And I guess Robin have a few words on this topic.
Super cool question, to be honest. This one, as Kostya just mentioned, we are using the Allure E. Maybe you guys are, all the participants, maybe you guys are also using the Allure, but we are using the Allure Enterprise version. So what's the benefits of this? We can get a history of the test cases. And then how are we gonna handle the flakiness? First, we need to define what is flakiness, flaky test. It means in same session, the first retry are failed. We also have a retry within the test session. If it failed before in this same session, but finally it passed, then we treat this as Flaky test. Then we get all of these statistics and then collect all of them, make the statistics. But still, as just a question mentioned, we are still working on that. Hopefully, at the end, if you guys are also interested in, maybe at the end we can also have something like a dashboard that people can go there to check for each team how many flag tests they have, and then they can plan their work in the future. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. I heard about some tools like that Cypress can detect flaky tests and stuff, but as for me, on my current projects, I try to, eliminate and isolate them. That takes most of my time regarding test flakiness. And our last questions, we have 8 minutes left. Maybe we can talk a bit about overprotection from flakiness that can cause tests that can never fail.
I don't get it. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry, I also don't get it. Like,
probably someone wants to eliminate them completely the same way as we do. Someone dreams about it. They're like having overprotection. I mean, it's like having 5 internet providers coming to the office and to the Sauce Lab server and stuff, or probably too much retries. Well,
yeah,
we also have some. Yeah.
I think I get this question about overprotection of this flag test. Like we do a lot of retry. It's kind of yes, maybe we protect this flag test. However, as what I mentioned, that we need to really think about the value, the business value of these test cases and the effort that we put on these test cases. Let's imagine that we have a flag test there. We finally make this test cases pass after retry. But in another side, we need to set up the processes to handle this flag test. It doesn't mean we just run test cases, then we don't care about it. It's not like this. We just make this from the business perspective, the test cases won't impact really did his values and also won't impact the release because of flakiness. In another side, as people just mentioned about this dashboard, if we have this dashboard about flakiness test, it means we can plan the work after. So as what we just have discussed about involved developers inside of these processes, then we have a list of works to fix this flag test, to understand why these test cases are flaggy, and then the developers can also involved within these processes. It's not really an overprotection. It's just like a balance, a little bit balance about the effort of fixing the flagginess and also the effort, the values of the test cases.
Yeah, that's right. You can spend too much resources on preventing test flakiness, but at the same time, some manual tester can just run them manually and spend just a couple of hours. That would be much cheaper for the company than to making sure it never fails. Okay, we have 5 minutes left and we have some great news. Konstantin, please.
Yeah, that's the most interesting part actually of our presentation. That we are hiring. Yeah, so please feel free to reach our careers page because we are really hiring the talented QA engineers, QA team leads in Amsterdam, in Berlin, and even Bern in the Russian office. So we need QA team leads, QA automation engineer, software development engineer and tests. So even QA engineer with DevOps skills also will be really useful for us. So please feel free to reach out to our page or our LinkedIn pages. So yeah. Thank you.
And even some more great news. We are hiring too, QATestLab. The positions are automation QA engineer in Java, JavaScript, Python, and we also provide the option to work remotely for candidates from Belarus, Moldova, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Kenya, and Armenia. For more jobs, please visit the link QATestLab.com/company/careers. Great. I think we've covered most of the things we wanted to discuss, or even all of them. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for watching. Thank you guys for joining us. From here, this concludes our webinar. If you have questions later, feel free to reach us out on the emails on the slide. And also you can reach the speakers. You can see our contacts at the bottom. Yep. Any more info?
No, that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you for this webinar. That was really interesting. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Have a nice day.